Good morning. So for today, we are going to discuss conditions on parallelism and perpendicularity of lines. Okay, so here is our module for quarter 4 week 4. Okay, so that is all about parallelism and perpendicularity. Okay, so when you say conditions on parallelism and perpendicularity of lines. So here is our expectations. Differentiate parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay? Then prove theorems and certain geometric conditions for parallel and perpendicular lines. And also apply conditions for parallel and perpendicular lines in solving related geometric condition problems. Okay, so when we say parallel lines, the opposite edges up on the board are said to be parallel, and to test if it is parallel, let's have a solid line passing through the opposite horizontal edges on the board as the transversal line. Okay, so for example this one. So naming as follows on the figure, upper edge as the segment MA, ito yung segment MA. Then the lower edge as the segment H2. And then the point of intersection is P and R. P on the MA, then R on HT. So segment PR as transversal po siya. So condition 1, parallel lines are coplanar. So two lines are parallel if and only if they lie on the same plane. So they are coplanar and do not intersect. So the board form the plane mat and segment MA lies on the plane mat. Segment HT lies on the plane HT. Okay? Therefore, MA is coplanar with HT. And segment MA is parallel to HT. Yung dalawa yan. Parallel sila. Condition 2, parallel lines by transversal line. Corresponding angles are congruent. So, for example, angle 1, ito yung angle 1 natin is corresponding to angle 5. Then, the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 5. Angle 3 is corresponding to angle 7. Then, the measure of angle 3 is equal to the measure of angle 7. And also, angle 4 is corresponding angle of angle 8. Then the measure of angle 4 is equal to the measure of angle 8. And angle 2 corresponds to angle 6. Then the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 6. Okay? So yun po yun. Okay, next. Next is parallel lines by perpendicular transversal line. So if two coplanar lines are perpendicular to the same line, then they are parallel. So consider transversal line is perpendicular to MA. Ito pa yung ating MA, perpendicular po siya. Then the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2. Which is equal to the measure of angle 3 and angle 4. So they are all equal to 90 degrees. Since corresponding angles are congruent, then the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 5. Then the measure of angle 5 is equal to 6, 7, and 8, which are 90 degrees also. So therefore, transversal line is perpendicular to HT. So therefore, MA is parallel to HT. Okay, so condition 3 is parallel lines by perpendicular transversal line. Okay. Then condition 4, parallel lines through another parallel line. So if two lines are parallel to the third line, then they are parallel to each other. Consider three straight road lines. So line 1, lane 2, then lane 3. So if lane 1 is parallel to lane 2 and lane 2 is parallel to lane 3, so we can say that lane 1 is parallel to lane 3 by transitive property of equality. So when we say perpendicular lines, relative to the concept that the right angle is formed when there are two intersecting lines perpendicular to each other, then perpendicular lines are formed when there is at least one angle measured 90 degrees. So condition 1, perpendicular lines form for right angles. Consider that the measure of angle 1 is equal to 90 degrees. So we can prove that MA is transitive or perpendicular transversal line. So if measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees, so we can say that the measure of angle 2 is 90 degrees. That is because the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. Ito po yun. Ano? Which is linear pair. So, linear pair po siya. Then, the measure of measure of angle 3 is 90 degrees. So, linear pair din po yun to the measure of angle 4. Pareho lang po, 90 degrees. Okay? And then, condition number 2, if the angles in a linear pair are congruent, then the lines containing their sides are perpendicular. So, considering the given on condition 1, which is measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2 are linear pair, measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees and measure of angle 2 is 90 degrees. So, we can say that the measure of angle 1 is congruent to the measure of angle 2, which are all equal to 90 degrees. Okay, next. Let us say that the measure of angle 1, which is 50 degrees, prove that the measure of angle 5 is equal also to 50 degrees. So once again, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. Linear pair angle or straight angle. Okay? Then the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 6. And that is given. And then measure of angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees minus 50. So therefore, 130 degrees po siya. So addition property of equality. Then in the symmetric property, so measure of angle 6 is equal to 130 degrees. So therefore, the measure of angle 6 plus the measure of angle 5 is 180 degrees. So linear pair po ulit yun. So therefore, masasabi po natin na ang measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 5. Okay? Equal po sila. So, alternate interior or exterior angles are congruent. So, kagaya po ng nating natalakay na last meeting na ang interior at exterior alternate angles ay equal or congruent. So, angle 1 corresponds to angle 7. Then, the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 7. Kagaya din po ng angle 2 and angle 8, angle 3 and angle 5, also din po sa angle 4 and angle 6. So consider that the alternate exterior angles, which is the measure of angle 1, is equal to the measure of angle 7. If the measure of angle 1 is 80 degrees, so therefore the measure of angle 7 is also 80 degrees. So ito po yung ating reason or the statements. Pagkakasunod-sunod. Ano po? Also, interior and exterior angles on the same line are supplementary. Supplementary naman po ha. Same line naman po. Same line dun sa ating transversal line. So therefore, measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 is 180 degrees. Kagaya din po ng 3 and 6, 1 and 8, and 2 and 7. So therefore, consider that the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 is 180 degrees. So therefore, if the measure of angle 1 is 60 degrees, so masasabi po natin na ang measure ng angle 1 is equal, measure of angle 4 is 180 or 120 degrees. So yun po yung mga reason niya. So therefore, measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 is 180 degrees. And that is supplementary nga po. So consider this. Then condition number 2, if two angles are adjacent and complementary, the non-common sides are perpendicular. Perpendicular naman daw po yun. So recall, complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. So kagaya nito, ano ha? The adjacent edges are MH, ito po yung MH, and the HT, ito yung HT, of the board are said to be perpendicular. Let AH, ito po yung A, ito yung H, AH be the transversal forming two adjacent and complementary angles through AH for angle MHA and angle AHT. So the non-common sides edges are MH and HT. So therefore, PH is perpendicular to MH. So yun po yan. So ito ay 90 degrees. Okay? So once again, two lines are parallel if they are coplanar and do not intersect. Parallel lines by transversal line. Corresponding angles are congruent. Alternate exterior, interior angles are congruent. Same side, exterior, interior angles are supplementary. Then, if two coplanar lines are perpendicular to the same line, then they are parallel. If two lines are parallel to another third line, then they are parallel to each other. And two lines are perpendicular if two lines form four right angles, two intersecting lines form a linear pair of congruent angles, and if a transversal is perpendicular to the first line and it is also perpendicular to the second line, parallel to the first line. So yun po yung ating mga condition ng parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So ito po yung ating activity number 1, then activity number 2, and activity number 3. So sasagutan po sa ating Google Classroom. So, thank you at sana po ay nakatulong itong ating video para masagutan natin ang ating quarter 4, week 4 ng ating self-learning module. So, here is the redeem code. So, naroon po sa taas at inyong i-claim ang inyong certificate. Okay?